Hey F1 fans, welcome back to another episode of Track Limits. My name's John, the motorsport enthusiast, your host, and this week we are heading to Japan, Suzuka, for the Japanese Grand Prix. And trust me, if you stop now, with all these headlines and all the things going on this weekend, you will not have a clue about what's happening on Sunday morning, depending on where you are. We've got driver swaps, Yuki mania in full swing, and the potential for rain again? Yeah, this weekend might be a little bit crazy. Let's get right into it. We're 2 races in, and the 2025 season has already turned completely upside down. Leading the Drivers' Championship is none other than Lando Norris with 44 points, thanks to a win and a podium. Max Verstappen in second with 36 points. George Russell sits third, 1 point behind Max with 35 points with back-to-back podiums. And Oscar Piastri hot on Russell's heels with 34 points. Now, the big shock, outside of both Ferraris being well back in the points, is that rookie Kimi Antonelli sitting 5th in points with 22 points in just his second start in Formula 1. Like I mentioned before, further back is Lewis Hamilton, now in a Ferrari with 9 points, sitting in 9th place in the point standings, with his teammate Charles Leclerc sitting in 10th with just 8 points. On the constructors' side, McLaren leads the way with 78 points. Mercedes follows suit in second with 57, with Red Bull sitting in third with 36, mainly thanks to Max. Actually, it's all because of Max. Williams and Ferrari are tied at 4th with 17 points apiece. Haas is 6th with 14 points, and Aston Martin, Sauber, Racing Bulls, and Alpine round out the final points position with 10 points, 6 points, 3 points, and Alpine with a big fat goose egg. Now let's talk about Suzuka. Suzuka is one of the most iconic and one of the most challenging circuits on the F1 calendar. This figure 8 style track has 18 corners and it's 5.807 kilometers long. From the fast flowing S curves in Sector 1 to the infamous 130R, Suzuka is not for the faint of heart. And a big reason is because it's hard to overtake. There's only one DRS zone, which is on the main straight, making overtaking just a little bit tricky. Here are some corners that you should watch out for this weekend. The Degner curves are tight and technical, and the Spoon curve sets up the back straight, and the 130R flat out madness. There's elevation changes, the figure 8 style track, and the potential for maybe rain. This just screams Australia 2.0. Now, before we dive into some of the late storylines and some of the news, we're going to take a quick pit stop. If you enjoyed these episodes of Track Limits and love to hear more about Formula 1 and everything else we have going on here at ATYO Media, make sure to hit that subscribe. We're just at about 3,000 subs, so we're almost there. We appreciate everybody, and let's dive back into Track Limits. And let me tell you a secret. Subscribing is faster than a Ferrari pit stop. Those are freaking quick, I would know. The first piece of news we need to discuss, which the world knows at this point, is Yuki Tsunoda replacing Liam Lawson at Red Bull. Yuki mania is real, and he's going into his home GP racing for arguably the best car and the best team on the grid. After just 2 races, Red Bull promoted Yuki Tsunoda from Racing Bulls up to Red Bull, replacing Liam Lawson, and those Japanese fans are ecstatic. I'm excited for Yuki. The question is, how fast will Yuki be in the Red Bull? The second part of this equation is Liam Lawson being demoted to Racing Bulls, the team he raced for last season. The big question is how fast will Liam be in that car that he's somewhat familiar with? He's going up against true rookie Isaac Hadjar, and it's a big test for him this weekend right off the bat. The redemption arc getting ready to unfold. The third piece of news is McLaren, the dual internal conflict between Oscar and Lando. Who's the number 1 driver? Both of those McLaren drivers are at the top of their game. Lando winning in Australia and Oscar winning in China. Could this create a little bit of tension between who McLaren will favor when it comes to the championship? Will papaya rules be thrown out the window? Who knows? We'll have to see. Fourth piece of information. Ferrari. What are you doing? Hamilton and Leclerc are under pressure for sure. As a Ferrari fan, yes, I feel it. Ferrari has the same points as Williams at this point in the season. Now, mainly due to the double disqualification from China, which is not what anybody expected. But Suzuka could be a make or break for them, especially in the rain. Let's see how that strategy unfolds, because we saw what happened in Australia. It was just not good. And number 5, Carlos Sainz at Williams. Albon has been delivering a little bit better than Carlos Sainz has, so is Carlos Sainz on the hot seat a little bit? Not from whether or not he's going to lose his seat or not, but is he just under a little bit of pressure to outperform Alex Albon? Can he bounce bounce back in Suzuka and finish ahead of his new teammate. A couple of other bonus bits of information. Number 1, Alpine has 0 points. We need to figure that out. 2, the chance for rain on Sunday in Suzuka is probable. That's going to throw a huge wrench into the game plans of all of these teams and all these drivers. So pay attention to who can actually take advantage of this. Kimi Antonelli, Haas, maybe the Williams again, maybe Aston Martin. Lance finished 6th in the rain in Australia. Who knows? Now let's talk about Suzuka's history and the legacy of the track. It's one of the most iconic, like I mentioned before, on the Formula One calendar. Michael Schumacher has the most wins all time at Suzuka with 6 wins, and right behind him is the new Ferrari driver, Lewis Hamilton, with 5. Sebastian Vettel has 4, and Max Verstappen has 3 wins. Now McLaren leads all-time wins here by a constructor with 9 wins, with Ferrari and Red Bull right behind them at 7 apiece. And speaking of Red Bull, let's talk about Yuki. A Japanese podium has been rare here in the past. And I'm not just talking about at Suzuka, I'm talking about in Formula One, period. Aguri Suzuki, Takuma Sato, not at Suzuka, and Kamui Kobayashi have stood on the podium in Formula One as Japanese drivers. The question is, can Yuki be that 4th driver to do so? And this year, when it comes to what we are expecting from lap times, we're expecting anywhere between the 127s to 128s in qualifying, with the lap record being 130.9 by Lewis Hamilton back in 2019. Now let's dive into the full weekend schedule, and if you're in the United States, I pray for your sanity again. Australia, China, now Japan. It's been a very early or late start to the season for all of us. Now I'm going to go from the time at the track to Eastern time to Central time to Pacific. Again, I'm going to go from time in Japan to Eastern time here in the States, Central time here in the States, and Pacific time here in the States for all practice sessions and qualifying in the race. FP1 is at 11:30 a.m., which is 10:30 p.m. on Thursday, 9:30 p.m., or 7:30 p.m. I gotta look at this because times are wild. FP2 is at 3 p.m. in Japan, which is 2 a.m. Friday morning, 1 a.m., and 11 p.m. on Thursday for people on the Pacific Coast. Saturday, April 5th, FP3 is at 11:30 a.m., which is 10:30 p.m. on Friday for people on the East Coast, or 9:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time. With qualifying at 3 p.m. Japan Time, 2 a.m. Saturday morning for people on the East Coast, 1 a.m. for people Central Time, and 11 p.m. on Friday for people on Pacific Time. And the race taking place at 2 p.m. on Sunday, April 6th in Japan. That is 1 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, or 12 a.m. Central Time on Sunday, or 10 p.m. on Saturday night for people on the Pacific Coast. It's going to be another late race week for all of us. Now let's take a look at some of the odds going into this weekend's race. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are currently the 2 favorites to win with the plus 160, meaning if you bet $100, you will win $1,600. Max Verstappen is sitting currently at the 3rd highest odds with plus 850, followed by Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Charles Leclerc, all 3 of them at plus 1100. And then sneaking in the mix at a plus 3500, Kimi Antonelli. Let me tell you, it would not surprise me for him to be on the podium. And speaking about what I expect, here's my prediction for this weekend's Japanese Grand Prix. I think Red Bull performs well. I think Red Bull possibly has one of the better cars in the rain. I think Verstappen will win with Norris in 2nd and Kimi Antonelli in 3rd. Now, if it rains, look for a 4th or 5th place driver such as Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc at this point in the season to potentially mix it up and go for the win. We know how good Lewis is in the rain. We just hope that Ferrari strategy can actually put him out on the right tires this time. But in the dry, I think it's going to be a Red Bull versus a McLaren show. With that being said, that wraps up today's episode of Track Limits. I think this is going to be one of the most memorable Japanese Grand Prix, and let's just entertain the thought. Imagine if Yuki wins in his return to Red Bull in Japan. Pretty emotional moment. I might cry. We got Yuki racing in his home race, got rain, we got the figure 8. It's going to be absolutely crazy, but such a great weekend of racing. I'd love to know who you think is going to win this weekend's Japanese Grand Prix, so make sure you drop that in the comments, and after you do that, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes of Track Limits or any other episodes of any other creators that are here on A2IL Media. Until then, keep it within track limits, and I'll see you next week.